Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of the group chat on the two-way platform, where our mantra is peace, love, and understanding, and we encourage you to reflect those values in your own commentary, both by participating in our content here, raising your hand, we'll call on you, you'll be able to sound off, and also in the chat or wherever chats are appearing. Keep it civil, keep it classy. Do all the things your kindergarten teacher told you to do when in public, but we do appreciate hearing your comments, having you participate in the conversation. We want to hear from you. We had a great discussion last week on everything going on in Minneapolis with ICE, with immigration, with the tragic shooting of Renee Good, and we analyzed that from many different perspectives, and that was, I thought, really healthy. We will do that again today because there is more ICE-related news. Of course, it continues to be the big subject of conversation in political news, so we will get to that topic, although we're going to start on another part of the globe first. Of course, I am Robbie Suave, joined as always by Nina Turner and Emma Jo Morris, and also Stephen Alacara, an independent political commentator and former Senate candidate. Glad to see all of you and have you with me as we discuss the news of the day. I figured we'd start where else but with Greenland, a beautiful landmass to our north that President Donald Trump has seen fit to try to acquire, like he's playing Risk and moving he wants to acquire the entire North American continent. You only get the additional troop deployments in that board game if you also have Greenland. I think that's mostly what is guiding the strategy. Let's actually play element one, which was Trump speaking about Greenland, and see if that's how he summarized it.
It's very important for the national security, including of Denmark. And the problem is, there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland. But there's everything we can do. You found that out last week with Venezuela. There's everything we can do about things such as that. Not going to happen. We're not, I can't rely on Denmark being able to fend themselves off. They were talking about they put an extra dog, and they were serious about this. They put an extra dog sled there last month. They added a second dog sled. That's not going to do the trick.
Okay. Emma Jo, hit me with an affirmative case for acquiring. And look, I would like to have it. I will agree that ideally Greenland would be controlled by the U.S., certainly not by Russia or China. I don't think we can seize it from them without their participation. In my view, if they want to remain part of Denmark or want to be independent, then that's how it has to be. But talk about the importance of Greenland to the Trump to MAGA.
Just can we take 2 seconds to respect his level, he's so dismissive. It's so funny. He is the comedic genius of our time.
Fully agree on that.
Yeah, he's extremely rude, but the timing it makes it sort of, you almost miss how rude it is. But anyway, he's not wrong. As all things said with good. All good humor is sort of true. And what he's saying is, I don't know if it's literally dog sleds. If it is, then he's even funnier. But they can't defend the land. So if you can't defend the land, we defend the land. So if we defend the land, we're incurring the cost of the land, but we don't have any benefit. That's Trump's. Aside from the Don Road doctrine, if you just look at the way Trump views things and Trump views fairness, this has been something that he has been on since 2016 about various things, where we shoulder all these costs, we shoulder a lot of burdens around the world, and the American taxpayer and the American working man does not see any of the benefit for all of the costs that we pay. So yes, defending Greenland gives us the right to Greenland, unless Denmark wants to send another dog sled to fend off China. But as far as I know, that's not happening. And then what is the argument exactly for it to not be our territory, especially when the United States has a very explicit new foreign policy philosophy that has been outlined in the most recent national security, there was a national security kind of declaration that was written by Michael Anton. And the administration has basically said, this is what we care about, our hemisphere. We care about our half of the world. That is what secures our immediate safety. And everything else is secondary to that. But we will control our hemisphere. And that obviously explains what's been going on in Venezuela. That explains Trump's interest in Canada. And it explains Trump's interest in Greenland is we are trying to create a firewall around us and our neighbors so that for a number of reasons. A, so that we're insulated from threat, and B, so that threats can't come too close to us. So this is all obviously really about China, and he says that every time. So that said, it's like, yeah, we're paying all the costs for Greenland and not getting any of the benefit. And also, this is our explicit priority now, is we are securing our hemisphere, and yes, we're controlling it.
Stephen,
I'll
Nina?
jump in first to say I agree. Trump comedically is a genius in the Oval Office. This unscripted interactions with the press are pretty. The only thing he didn't have in there is his "like a dog" line when describing the dog sleds. I at least I would have lost it if he did that. So there's that. Second is the shipping, national security, and mining potential benefits with Greenland are there, and it's real. And so just because Trump is often very comedic when he approaches these topics, I know some people completely dismiss it. It is a real topic, and there are real substantive things to talk about when it comes to Greenland and its potential alignment with U.S. interests. But the third thing that I think we really need to fathom here is how much Trump has reversed on his core foreign policy tenets. The whole concept of him running and some key supporters like Tulsi Gabbard getting behind him is to be what he calls America first, but not really pushing back against America's imperialist tendencies, which it's had over the years, and to really focus on what's happening in this country, because we have so many times overextended ourselves as a country. Our military, somehow the answer is always more military, whether it's whether we're talking about Doge, which couldn't touch the Pentagon apparently, or whether we're talking about Greenland, it's always more military somehow. So the military industrial complex wins out no matter what. And we just have to really take into account how Trump, who scrambled the pro-war, anti-war politics in these last couple election cycles, is now a neocon in the same lane as a John Bolton or a Dick Cheney, and we need to be honest about that.
Can you explain?
I mean, he's not the exact
Wait,
same.
that was a huge claim. Please explain how Trump is like John Bolton.
Not seeing a conflict that he didn't like and that he wanted to avoid getting into. It's interesting that this conversation is coinciding with Venezuela. There's Iran. There's Greenland.
I was going to bring up Iran. Interestingly enough, Trump has stepped back from attacking Iran, coming as a great actually disappointment to John Bolton, who I saw on CNN saying this is some kind of example of Trump chickening out. Trump says he's satisfied from what he's heard from Iranian authorities that they're not going to carry out this, mass execution policy that he was worried about, that they're constrained in that. Now there are people in the GOP and probably people, Democrats too, want him to go in there and, replace the regime. I think that would have run pretty contrary to what he has said in terms of no new wars, although maybe the utter catastrophe that was about to unfold made the situation different. But yeah, I think the appeal of Trump was no new wars, but MAGA has tried to say, well, America first includes the entire continent, right? It doesn't just mean the United States. What's your view, Nina?
Wait, can somebody spell it out very slowly for me? Because apparently I've missed a lot. What war are we in?
Well, we just kidnapped maybe legitimately, but the leader of
Is Venezuela at war with
Venezuela.
us? Is Venezuela?
So that's what
I think
Tulsi
it's hard to
Gabbard.
say that's not an act of war if you go take the leader of another country and
that is
them.
The definition of regime change is literally taking out the regime.
Do we have a single soul hovering over Venezuela? Is there a soul of an American hovering near Venezuela?
I mean,
military assets are.
you could press a button.
There one man in Venezuela in an American uniform.
So you're saying it's only war if there are American troops in a physical way present in the country?
Correct.
Okay, so if we nuked Russia, I would say we were at war with Russia, even if no American soldier was moved anywhere near Russia.
Obviously not a comparable situation.
All right, Nina, what do you think?
I mean, I'm rolling with Stephen. I'm around the corner on my way where Stephen is on the street. President Donald J. Trump definitely ran against Biden to his left on all of these things. And now he is out full frontal, going in. In what world would it not be? That would be just like a country saying, you know what? We don't like the way President Donald J. Trump is running things. We're about to come up in there, kidnapped him and his wife.
If the Denmark,
if they could,
sled
they
dog
would.
team went and got Trump and they put him on the sled and they took him to the North Pole, this is becoming like a Christmas time adventure. I would consider that an act of war.
Robbie, you say it as a joke, but do you think that if Denmark, do you think that there isn't a country on earth where if they could send in a dog sled and kidnap Trump, they wouldn't do it?
It would be an act of
Every
war.
country would do this. They
It would
can.
be an act of war, though. Because for me, it doesn't matter whether or not I agree with President Donald J. Trump's policies. That would be unfathomable, and it would totally be an act of war. So why isn't it the case that this president was able to go in and kidnap another sovereign nation's leader and the man's wife?
Because he could.
And it's not an act of war. It is absolutely an act of war. And just because they are running under a doctrine that might makes right and money rules the world, dollar bills, y'all, they pick it on countries that cannot match the United States of America pound for pound. That is 100%. So Greenland he wants because he wants their resources. In the same way that he went in and bombed a village in Nigeria, claiming that they were or hurting Christians, when no evidence of that was true whatsoever. And Nigeria is in his sights too on the continent of Africa. Why? Because of their natural resources. You have a vice president who says basically, hey, whatever this president wants, he gets. His entire administration is saying whatever this president wants, he gets. So this is more authoritarian. The president said he is under he said he is not bound by national or international laws.
Because he's not. And
no, he is.
What administration makes decisions?
What happened to rule of law, Emma Jo? What happened to all that rule of law talk? That's all I want to know.
International rule of law enforced by what international policeman?
I am with Emma Jo more. When international law gets brought up, then I switch back to the Emma Jo side because I don't care about that and it's fine.
I mean,
it's vibes.
No,
it's made up.
The president. And one other point I want to make about Iran is that he cares about what is happening to protesters over there, but meanwhile he's allowing ICE, who Vice President J.D. Vance from the great state of Ohio, unfortunately, said that ICE has absolute immunity, which there is no legal term for absolute immunity. I double dog dare you to find it. It does not exist. They're just making up stuff as they go.
Yeah, absolute immunity. Right. I agree with you on that, Nina. Absolute immunity. They enjoy qualified immunity, which even that I would be probably less willing than a lot of people on the right to extend so much protection to government employees who make mistakes in the course of their duties. Absolute immunity would be like, I mean, if an ICE officer like murdered their wife or something, we would prosecute them for murder. It's right. Having to do with your official duties. There is some protection from the law. So he
not absolutely
definitely misspoke, right, when he said that. In my view. Okay, let's move on to the ICE subject, which generated so much great conversation last week. Let's play. Walz had a primetime address. Let's play a little of that and react.
Very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. But as bad as it's been, Donald Trump intends for it to get worse. This week, he went online to promise that, quote, the day of retribution and reckoning is coming. So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough.
So he's clearly on the side of, this is terrorizing our communities, immigration enforcement. Stephen, is that gonna, is that the line he should be? I guess he's not running for re-election anymore. So I don't know what, guides Tim Walz's decision making. He hates Donald Trump. He, I would argue, has been insufficiently attentive to all the problems going on. But, he's going to go out. He's going to end on a this is all Trump's fault kind of tact, which I don't think is very helpful. But because the people on the right, Emma Jo's made this point. I've been in a lot of conversations with people on the right who've made this point. Like, well, you're not doing immigration enforcement, so ICE has been brought in to do it. And if you don't like that, then you got to have the local police cooperate with deportation. And we don't see this in red states because they're doing that job, and we don't have to bring in, masked thugs from out of state in the blue framing of it.
Yeah, well, in Minnesota nationally, I think we struggle to find balance. I mean, you do, in my view, need some form of immigration enforcement in this country. There was that alarming YouGov poll that came out, I think it was yesterday, with a pretty large amount of Americans, I think it was like 40%, believe that we should get rid of ICE as an agency. You need some kind of enforcement here. At the same time, we can't have ICE going as far as it has in recent weeks. And I think that's not a good look for America, where you have these militaristic scenes on American streets, Civil War-like scenes on American streets. And I think ICE being painted as perfect in the eyes of MAGA and Trump doesn't actually lead to the kind of real solutions we need, which is we need enforcement, but not illegal enforcement, which is what I think we've seen from ICE.
Yeah, we see, I was listening to Rand Paul was on with Joe Rogan this week, and they talked about a lot of stuff of greater interest to me, of prosecuting Dr. Fauci, which is, remains my goal. But I know. I'm living in the past, but that's all that matters to me. It's fine. I'm old fashioned that way. Well, I don't know. Trump's trying to prosecute everyone. James Comey, Letitia J, finding an excuse for everybody, but we don't. That guy, no, even though he created the whole pandemic in the first place. Neither here nor there. They got into a little bit of what we're seeing in Minneapolis, and Rogan, who is kind of an important in the middle person, someone who supported people on the left in the past, came around to supporting Donald Trump, but criticizes aspects of things Trump does, is like, look, I do want immigration enforcement, but I don't like what I'm seeing from all this again strong thug-like behavior. And I know what Emma Jo, you're gonna say.
I'm sorry, Robbie, but you and Stephen have been doing the same thing. I'm so sorry. There's this middle class, there's this bourgeois kind of like decadence that comes with this commentary that I'm struggling with. The reason, first of all, that they're masked thugs. The reason why they're masked is because they're interacting with cartels. So they have to cover their face, because if their face is photographed and circulated among the criminal syndicates that they are breaking up on your behalf, they can get killed and their family can get killed. Second of all, the reason why there is conflict is because there is resistance to federal law enforcement. These people are in the country. These people are in the country illegally. I feel like I'm going insane. Every week that we talk about immigration, somehow I feel like my sanity somehow departs, leaves me. I feel like a looser grip on my sanity every time we have this conversation. They're not barging down random doors and taking people away like.
Yes, they are, Emma Jo.
No, they're not.
Multiple reports that confirm that. I know people.
Yes, they are.
You know people, Stephen? Who do you know?
There are people, friends of mine in LA, who have spoken about ICE randomly coming to their daycares and to their schools to randomly take employees of those facilities.
ICE is randomly taking U.S. citizens? Where was that reported?
So,
not your friend. Where was that reported?
So what we're seeing here, I can't speak to their documentation status, but Trump campaign.
You can't speak to their documentation status, so why are you saying it?
Because what the policy was supposed to be, Emma Jo, the way the policy was supposed to be carried out is to focus on people who have criminal activity.
That is not what the policy was.
Right,
and I think
Emma
we
Jo
actually have
just
some
right.
consensus
That's
there.
your version of the policy, Stephen, and that's my
Yeah,
version.
your
But what Emma Jo
version.
is saying is that no, she wants them all gone.
It's not Emma
So-
Jo. It's ICE's role is to deport illegal aliens who are in the country illegally. It doesn't matter if they're professional cuddlers or if they're cartels.
Okay, but that I agree with you on that, but that doesn't mean that we should, in my view, accept an unlimited amount of
There's
violations
no-
of American citizens' rights to get to that point.
There's no view, in my view. There's no in my view. ICE has a stated job, a legal parameter within which it operates, which is to deport illegal aliens, not somebody who's only a drug dealer, not somebody who's only a rapist.
And that's not what I was saying.
Not-
That's not what I was saying.
It doesn't matter.
I
Illegal
understand that.
aliens get removed from society by ICE. That is the job.
By any means necessary, with no matter the other consequences to the rest of us.
It turns into that because they resist arrest.
Okay, so we're going to. What if we have to have guards on every street corner, and you and I have to go through checkpoints to get to our job? Like, I know that's like a thought experiment, but you would never get to a point where you'd say, okay, I would ease up on this a little bit.
Here's my thought experiment. And this is the thought experiment of MAGA. And this is the thought experiment of the people who voted for Donald Trump, the majority of this country. The thought experiment that we are in is the angel families in our country. That's my thought experiment. Nana has children. I don't know about Stephen. The angel families are my thought experiment. I am not going to be an angel family, and we have a law. It's done. It's done. I don't care. My thought experiment is this is a threat. It's a domestic threat, and we're done. That's mass deportations. That was what won on the ballot in 2024. So I don't know what we're talking about right now. ICE is too mean. And do you know who you're talking about? Do you know what Sinaloa is? Do you know what these people are who have facilitated this invasion of a free country, of our sovereignty? It's done. We're done.
The reason why I think you need a nuanced policy when it comes to people who are here illegally is because humanity, like human beings, are different. And so you have some people who are here in this country illegally, but are upstanding citizens and are productive members of their community. And there are also people here who engage in criminal activity. And you need a policy that accounts for that, because pragmatically speaking, you can't, if you truly want to deport over 10 million people in this country, you can do that, but that's not a country that I would want to live in, because you'd have what Robbie is talking about. You'd have that kind of military presence on a day-to-day basis.
There's no country on earth that doesn't enforce its sovereignty, apparently, except for Stephen's version of America.
Well, that's
I support.
I mean,
you can, Emma Jo, you can look back at my
some deportation. You're saying every single person who entered the country illegally, no matter the cost, no matter the effort involved. And
is the law ambiguous, or is it black and white? In word is like I'm confused.
I mean, Marco Rubio, among others,
real world.
believe that there
The
should be
real
some
world
nuance
is we have a
here.
law, and ICE executes the law. That is what Tom Homan is saying. That is what Trump is saying. What Stephen Miller is saying. What JD Vance is saying. What everybody in charge of this issue, who was elected by the American people, who pitched it and were elected on the premise that they were going to enforce the law as it was written, not in a thought experiment,
the law
and
does
not
not require
theoretically,
them,
and not with sensitivity, but as it was written for once.
So a couple
Nina.
of things come to mind for me. Just because people can do something doesn't necessarily mean they should do something. It is the way in which ICE is comporting itself. We did not have ICE in the United States of America prior to 2003 as a country. And we still had laws with regards to immigration into the United States of America. I think the way that we're acting as if ICE always existed and ICE is the only thing. ICE is not the only thing. That's number one. Number two, humanity demands that the United States of America comports itself differently. And what I see happening, and I agree with Stephen, is I have had people call me. I have friends in places like Chicago where American citizens, even if I put aside undocumented people for a moment, Emma Jo, United States citizens are getting caught up in this maelstrom of ICE can do whatever it wants to do, whenever it wants to do it. And I come from a history and a tradition of people wearing masks and being able to take extra legal, involve themselves in extra legal activities and have both a federal government, a state government, and local governments back up what they did to Black Americans in this country well after chattel slavery. But if we want to go there, we can go there too. And so there has to be a certain sensitivity. The people in Minnesota do not deserve to be occupied. You got over 3,000 agents. You got a mayor that's scared, saying that if the police enforce the law, that they scared that they outgunned by ICE. You got the leader of ICE saying, I double dog dare a local or a state official to try to block something that ICE is doing, do it and watch out what finds out. And now you got the president of the United States of America saying that he is going to invoke the Insurrection Act in 2026. It is madness. There is not going to be a good end to this. He is stoking civil war and distension in the United States of America in a way that does not have to be done. Now, Emma Jo, the president did run on saying the way he sold this to the American people is that I'm going to get the worst of the worst. And the others, we're going to find a way to help them legally get into this country. That's how the president ran this. He did.
He ran on amnesty.
He did.
That's just not true. He didn't run on amnesty. He ran on mass deportations. I'm sorry.
And he said, we're going to get the worst of the worst. That's what the man said. So it's how you do it. Do you think that people sitting at random gas stations deserve to have their windows broken out and being pulled out of their cars? Children at school having to see ICE agents up and down the street. Do they deserve that? Nobody deserves this.
We got some hands up. I believe Dan is first. Dan, why don't you let us know how you feel about the subject or whatever's on your mind. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me. My question is based on everything that's happening in Minnesota and a recent comment that Trump made about there shouldn't be midterm elections. I'm wondering, I'm at the point now where I strongly believe he's going to use the military to show up at voting places to try and intimidate people of color, brown people, to not show up and vote because they're going to be scared, because they are grabbing citizens. Despite what Emma Jo says, that is happening. They are they're going up to Uber drivers and talking about their accents. These things are actually happen. It's on video. So I think Trump is going to use the military when it comes to the midterm elections. And I just want to know, as a citizen, what our recourse is.
Trump did talk about that. I'm not so worried that's going to happen. I think that we're still we have strong enough safeguards that Trump's not going to use the military in that way, that there would be too much, backlash to that kind of thing. But
no, Robbie,
maybe Nina or Steven have that concern.
I used to think that, but I'm not so sure. I mean, Dan is right. The president said, that the president expressed frustration that his Republican Party could lose control of the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate in this year's midterm elections, citing historical trends. And we know what the historical trends are. And quoting the president, it's some deep psychological thing. But when you're with the presidency, you don't win the midterms, Trump said. He boasted that he had accomplished so much that when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. To me, for so long, we have been willing to say, and I have been one of those too, because I wanted to give the president the chance, even though I don't agree with a lot of his policies to this point. I mean, what he's doing right now is totally, absolutely reckless. But I was one of those that said, let's see what the man is going to do. And people have often said he doesn't mean any of these things. That's just Trump being Trump. But heretofore, he is showing very clearly he means a lot of what he says. I mean, they're out there now trying to figure out how he can circumvent the fact that he could only have 2 terms. They're trying to figure that out right now as well. So no, I'm starting to take this man 100%. And Robbie, I do not. I mean, I used to think we had safeguards, but I'm not so sure that we do.
I don't think he's running for a 3rd term. I really don't. But we'll I'll buy you a drink or a snack or something if I end
mean,
up wrong about that. I think he's pretty explicitly ruled that out. Although there has been some reporting that Steve Bannon, who has been most enthusiastic about the third term for Trump, that might be.
Has come solely from Steve.
What's that? What's that, Emma Jo?
Term stuff has come solely from Steve. It's begun and ended with Steve Bannon.
Right. Yeah. Okay, you're agreeing with. Yeah. That's him on that. But is that? Well, do you think that is Emma Jo that's his way for him to? I hear he might run himself. So he posited the Trump third term. Trump's not going to do it, and then he's going to say, "Okay, it's me then."
Yeah, I mean, I'm just approaching this as somebody analyzing what I'm watching, and that's exactly what I think. I think he's saying, no, it has to be Trump, it has to be Trump. And then when all efforts have been exhausted, he'll reluctantly announce his bid.
We heard from a credible source, Trump's granddaughter, that he's not planning to run for a third term. So
definitely not.
I think he thinks it's funny.
Yeah, I think so too.
We've got
flattered, I'm sure.
We've got Andre. I might be mispronouncing your name. I'm so sorry if I am. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Because some misconceptions. One, there have been numerous times of ICE operating unlawfully. Notably, I think everybody here agrees to the constitutional demands of having a warrant before entering a building. There was a famous case of the Chicago South Shore building with a Black Hawk helicopter over it, where every single one of those residences was broken into by ICE. There was no warrant for any single one of them. They had suspicion that people were there illegally, and they broke into somebody's residence. And then that happened again for 3 days ago. January 11th, there was a Liberian national in Minnesota. It's on video that they came in with a battering ram to break into a residence. Regardless of whether there was a final determination order or not, they went into a residence without a warrant. And I think that's something that's going to need to be worked out. But of course, whether Steve is saying that we have a neocon in the office, or I'm sure we're going to get to the Great American Health Plan and the communist version of free handouts for everybody's health care plan, trying to figure out what the president is going to do is kind of regardless. But I do need to point out that when we're talking about people here in this country, these are when you have ICE in Minnesota, you're not talking about people who have come into the country via a border. There's no evidence that the Liberian or especially the Somali community is somebody who came over here across the Mexican border specifically. These are people who would have come here on a visa or on a visa-free regime and overstayed their allotment. And then after that fact, dating back to the 1990s and the agreement between Newt Gingrich's Congress and Bill Clinton, they increased the number of reasons you could be deported: shoplifting, filling out a bad check, all sorts of things that many people do throughout their lives. But that is a valid enough reason for people to be either detained or more seriously deported, as that young woman who was in college who was deported after flying home to visit her family for Thanksgiving and deported at the airport and then sent to Honduras without any notice. He is now on the way back because a federal judge had to point out that you're not supposed to do that without a hearing. So I'm just going to point out to all the professions that name me one thing that ICE is doing outside of that's extra legal. It's clearly things that are being done extra legally.
I mean, you say, I think I've made my position clear that I want to prioritize deportations, and I would not do the kind of mass deportation that many conservatives support. But if I hear, I don't really care if it's a petty shoplifting, I'm not going to go out of my way to stop that person from getting deported. If you're here illegally and you commit some other crime, I think you've lost that argument, right? You should. I mean, Stephen, do you agree with that? If there's some other criminal aspect and they're apprehended by immigration authorities, they got to go, and we got to make it, swift as possible, or there's just going to be no support for immigration in this country whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, we have limited resources. DHS and ICE has a certain budget, and so within that budget, you have to operate, and so you want to make obvious sort of common sense choices to prioritize. And like you said, Robbie, they're crimes and they're different sort of levels of crimes, and you probably want to take that into account in deciding how you want to deploy your enforcement actions on.
Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts on that? Anybody else? I mean, I think, shoplifting isn't that bad, but I think you'd go based on that if you get apprehended. I still, the one thing I still have not heard a good answer to is, if you're opposed to what ICE is doing, why shouldn't then the blue municipalities be doing their own immigration enforcement in participation with the federal government in order to stave off ICE having to, conduct these kinds of things?
Perhaps they're all members of Cato and agree that we should have more immigrants in this country. So
apparently.
Yes, I think the answer to that is immigration is a federal issue, right? It has been ruled a federal issue by the Supreme Court. When Texas, for instance, or Arizona wanted to have an immigration position that was more punitive than the federal government, they got slapped down. I remember that case from with the early 2010s. And so they'll say, okay, they want more immigration, but that's not what the federal government's position is, and they don't get to decide that, right? Is the conservative position.
But if somebody shoplifts, there are laws against shoplifting, correct? Just like there are laws against murder, correct? So if an undocumented person shoplifts and they're caught, there's a law.
So we keep them here, and we would just prosecute them for shoplifting.
I didn't say any of that. I'm saying there's a law for that, and then ICE doesn't have to show up and deal with that. There's a law for that, and then that person, through the processing, it is determined that they're undocumented, and then we put them where they in the hands of federal people. You don't need ICE to do that. We're acting like there are no local laws against the things that we're talking about right here. And how is any of this making the quality of life when schools have to shut down and daycare centers are afraid to open for parents to bring their children there so that the parents can go to work? How is that making the quality of life for most Americans better? It is.
It absolutely is. You're an American kid in a low-income neighborhood, and you're in a class where a third or a half of the class doesn't speak English as a first language or at all.
Emma Jo,
that's tough. You have limited resources. The teachers are strained, as I'm sure you would argue.
Why, if we have limited resources, why are we giving all these resources to ICE instead of investing those resources into things like Medicare for all or child care for all?
You can't have socialism and open borders, Nina, please.
Why are we doing it this way? It's the boogeyman.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
The president is not accomplished. Emma Jo, I just wish this president.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but you can't have both. You can have socialism and open borders.
I only want one.
When have you
ever want open borders, Robbie? And Nina wants socialism.
When have you ever heard me say anything about open borders? When have you ever heard me? I never said that
these ugly and offensive deportations to be carried out.
Okay.
What I want,
but I think I don't want open. I'm not for open borders.
I never said I wanted open borders.
I think.
Okay, practically speaking, you do.
But I don't.
That is not fair to say it's pro open borders if you want any kind of wiggle room short of moving heaven and earth and throwing every resource conceivable into deporting every last person who has come here illicitly. That is not fair to say that is open.
Nina, you don't want ICE, do you? Am I misunderstanding you? I'm genuinely asking.
ICE, as it is comporting itself right now, absolutely not.
So how would ICE be comporting?
We found a way. ICE did not come into existence until 2003. So we have to find another way. This is not the way. This is just stoking anger and fear. And it is unfair to the American people to have masked men and or women out there on the streets, unmarked cars, and just snatching up people at whim. Absolutely not. ICE in this configuration should not exist. That does not mean, Emma Joe, don't conflate that to mean that I want open borders. As a sovereign nation, I wish we would respect the sovereignty of other nations, but I'm put that in the parking lot. As a sovereign nation, we have a right to dictate the rules by which people come into this country. How about investing in more judges on the borders? How about processing people the proper way? How about this Congress and this administration, not just
That
this
would be good.
And not just this administration, but previous Congresses and administrations have failed on immigration reform. But I think what we're seeing play out in American states and cities right now is absolutely not the way.
So then, okay, I don't disagree with most of that, but what do you do with the people who, which is a majority of these cases, they don't show up, or there are even court dates that are so far in the future that it's impossible to process, especially during the Biden administration. It would be literally impossible to process all of the illegal aliens that entered the country during Biden.
Okay, so we're fixing.
What do we do with the people who don't want to leave, who refuse to leave?
I don't think it's impossible, Emma Joe. We're the United States of America. I'm gonna count it.
What do you think won't show up?
It's where you're gonna invest the money and how you do things. It does matter how these things are being done. It should matter.
We've got Wally up next.
Like
Wally,
I got the question answered, but okay.
why don't we? There he is. Hello. Thanks for joining us. What's on your mind, sir?
Well, obviously immigration here, and sitting here listening to this, I've got a lot of things I'd probably like to say, but I'll try and limit it to maybe one or two topics so other people can join in. But, to one of the things you said, Stephen, earlier, you were talking about with the immigration policy, maybe it should be more nuanced. And as far as I'm concerned, I understand that point, but, the nuance went out the window 4 or 5 years ago when the Obama administration just basically undid all the stuff at the border and lied to the American people about we're doing stuff at the border and all these extra immigrants came into this nation. It's just, no, the time has passed. Immigration laws have been on the books for decades, and those were passed by our lawmakers that were voted by the American people. President Trump ran 3 times with immigration enforcement as his signature policy. He was elected twice and almost a third time. And he's doing what he was elected to do. It may not look pretty, and I understand that the way it's being characterized as these thugs, these masked men, marauders are just descending into towns and kidnapping people off the streets and whisking them away. Well, that's sometimes law enforcement, how it's conducted. It can be portrayed in a negative light, but they're doing a difficult job. They're getting active resistance from political leaders, elected officials, and the public, for that matter. Nina, to your point about how the optics of how these masked or these militarized-looking people coming into towns and doing that. Well, in 1962, when I think it was James Meredith wanted to enroll in Mississippi, the governor of that state, I think it was Ross Barnett, he ran on segregation. He physically went to that university and denied Meredith entry. President Kennedy at the time, he sent over 30,000 military, not policemen, not ICE, they were over 30,000 active military to enforce federal law, to enforce the desegregation laws. I'm sure that didn't look pretty to the folks of the South, particularly those who did not want integration. So I say, the stuff that looks bad now, it pales in comparison what has been done.
First of all, they were not masked, and second of all, this is not similar. To enforce the laws that Black people born in this country were entitled to is really a sin and a shame that they had to be sent in the first place. But that is the history of this.
Emma, it was federal law. It was federal law, Emma. And you can't tell me that Ross Barnett, the governor, wasn't upset.
Upset for the wrong reason, because they were anti-Black bigots is why they were upset.
You can't pick and choose your reasons. This is federal law. If you don't like the reason, change the law. But this is a federal law.
You are conflating things, and in no way am I going to sit here and allow you to compare Black Americans born in this country being denied the benefits of their citizenship rights to what is happening in the 21st century with these ICE agents.
I think what he's saying is that, right, the feds were right in that case to enforce the law, which was desegregation.
No that, Robbie, was what I'm saying. I'm rejecting the premise flat out.
And I'll respond to what
you guys are saying, that ICE agents are being sent in legally to take out people who are not legally.
They're being sent to enact what is the law.
And
the local people don't like it, but that's what the law is. Just was the case with
these are not equal situations whatsoever at all. And it really is an insult to Black America. I'm tired of Black Americans being used to make these kinds of examples. They are not the same at all by any stretch of the imagination. Because one should have never needed to happen in the first place.
But I don't think that's what's being debated. Of course, you're right about that.
We're not masked.
It's bad, and it should not be the situation. But what that person was saying was that there was incredible local resistance, local communities not wanting desegregation, and it took federal intervention. And we recognize now in hindsight that was the right thing for the feds to do.
It was anti-Black racism,
right? And that's bad.
It did not have equal rights in the United States, where they were born and built this country. These are two different things, and they are being conflated in the wrong way. I think, Mr. Wood, I understand what you're trying to get at. What I am saying is I reject the comparison premise. Period. It's wrong. It's a wrong assessment. Stephen, you wanted to jump in here before I start.
No, it's fine. I agree with your rejection of the premise. I'll just add that I do think some recent Democrats, particularly Biden, did not do a good enough job of securing the border. And I think his late executive action just essentially came too late. And the reason why nuance is important is because you have people who are in this country without documentation for different reasons. And I think one example where historically there had been a lot of bipartisan support is around dreamers. These are often young people who are here because they came over the border. They might have been 1 year old, 2 years old. They're basically here due to no fault of their own. And then they've grown up in the society and they're essentially Americans, culturally speaking. And every dreamer I know is just an extraordinary individual. They've got an education. They're doing amazing things. And so when you have $1 of immigration enforcement, do you want that going to kick out someone who's gone to our schools, often public schools, public universities here, who's a dreamer, or someone who's committed some very serious criminal activities? I would like to think the nuanced approach would say we want to focus on people who are criminals and not dreamers.
First, and that doesn't mean you don't get other people. So, Emma Jo, I just want to know, I mean, don't you, or how do you feel? I'm not going to ask you the question that way. I mean, how do you feel about resources being deployed to help the lives of American people be better, like universal healthcare? You know, that's my thing. You know, that's my answer for everything. That's my thing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with you. You know that I don't disagree with you about stuff like this. I mean, I'm not as down with universal healthcare as you, but I also definitely obviously see the point of this, like where this comes from, and agree with that. You know, I think I'm still trying to figure out what I think about it.
Yeah, I understand.
But but I totally agree. Obviously, like that, I think that's a big part of MAGA. I don't think I'm an outlier in that opinion. That we should be pouring resources on the American people as opposed to the burning of money that we've been doing over the last 20 years. I just I think it's of equal priority and actually facilitates that priority to enforce our sovereignty. And I mean, you guys know how I feel. You don't like it. I'm an absolutist. I'm an extremist this way. You don't like it. I don't discern between, to me, again, I'm not offended or personally attacking. It's not personal. I see the law as a very black and white, matter of fact thing. I'm not demonizing. It's not demonizing. It's a matter of fact. Entering the country illegally and setting up here and living here is a crime. It's a crime. It's just a crime. If I walked over to Nina's house and took the photo off of her wall in the background, that would be just a crime. I'm not It's not like hating Emma to say that that would be a crime. So you could assess, like you could personally, Nina or Stephen or Robbie, have your own opinion about how much that crime offends your sensibilities. It's a crime.
I would be.
Well, if we're going down that road, then I would say, okay,
and
yes.
at that point, it's like, do you believe in the enforcement of the law blindly and without prejudice, by the way?
But it's
Or
not
do
me.
you believe in like everybody kind of taking how much they're offended by the crime and then selectively administering law? I don't believe in that. I believe in
Oh, I get your point on that. I think the law is meted out selectively, and I know we have to probably save that for another show. But I want to, for the record,
I mean, I think the law should be changed. In that case, if that's what we're getting to, I think the law should be changed
Rocky, I gotta
so
make
that
a
people
point
could
here.
immigrate.
That's the only point that the Trump voters that I know at least are making. I don't know anybody like, but to me, a dreamer is the same as somebody who entered during the Biden era, is the same as somebody who entered in 1992 from Kazakhstan. It's all the same to me. You are here illegally. That is a crime. You must be deported if we are a country.
If it were you meeting it out, but that is not, it's not being meted out like that. I mean, you don't see European immigrants being snatched up. It's not being meted out equally. So, Emma Jo, I understand.
I actually disagree.
President Obama was the deporter in chief. I mean, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. He deported more even heretofore. Yet, I know President Donald J. Trump is in competition with the former president right now to see if he can beat that record. But Emma Jo, I would say, I would be hurt. I would be crushed if you took this teachers down. I would be.
Well,
yeah, exactly. Like it would suck. It's a crime. Like
aggression.
The laws are there to like protect your like ability to like chill. You can't have a life if you don't have like laws that are enforced. Like that's all.
I mean, I agree that we shouldn't have laws on the books that are not enforced.
Totally.
And we should enforce all things that are laws. We should work to reform the criminal code so that we don't have things that are criminalized that we don't actually want to prosecute people for. You know, if you start talking to law professors and anyone like that, they'll say, you know, the average American violates, you know, 5 different financial statutes and just like statutes related to everything you do all day that we just don't enforce that much, and we need reforms of those kind of things. That's why it's so easy for politically motivated, as Donald Trump has found out, and other Republicans, I would argue, lawfare and politically motivated prosecutions, because there are all sorts of laws relating to campaign finance and financial disclosures that you screw up inadvertently, or you incriminate yourself in some way, or in trying to plead your innocence, you obstruct justice, or they can't get you for the actual thing, the process. But I want to reform, you know, a lot of that, and I want to make it easier for. I mean, I would like to make it easier for people to come here who are going to work, not to come here and take welfare, not to come here and vote, not to come here and pilfer public services. But if they're going to work, I would bring them here.
And I think
that's fine. And if you wanna sign, if like the Robbie Congress or the Stephen Congress wants to like enact a law that like it's like you have to double crime. Like you can't just do one crime. You have to do a crime on top of the crime, and then you can be deported. Then okay. But that's not what it is. It's you get deported if you're here illegally, not if you do something else too to call our attention to you. That's not how it works.
My brother would agree with you, Emma Jo. My conservative brother would totally agree.
No, your brother is awesome. Sounds amazing.
Well,
yeah, I mean, there are also all sorts of things that are laws that I do. I mean, that's the libertarian talking. Like, again, during the pandemic, when they were trying to close businesses down for not requiring 6 feet of social distancing, even though that was the law, I was like, don't do that. And I did not think the law should be enforced because I thought the law was immoral. So I guess I do not think the law should be forced if I think it's be changed. I guess.
I mean, we've often had.
Be honest about that. You know,
you're standing outside going, yes, shut this restaurant down. Yes, excellent.
You know, but
I know that most conservatives, if we're going to talk about what MAGA believes, don't actually feel that way, right? I mean, freeing, getting people who smashed the windows of the Capitol off from being prosecuted was a major goal of many people in MAGA. And frankly, I thought there was some legitimacy to that, because I think some people were charged disproportionate to what their crime was. But it comes across to me like it is selective law enforcement.
No, I think the people
is labeled as a domestic terrorist.
Sorry.
On January the 6th. Who did things to police law enforcement, whether they were police or other types of law enforcement. I always use law enforcement advisedly because everybody's not a police officer, but then they're being let off. but
I think
Nicole
the whole like
gets shot in the head.
I think that that conservatives freaking out about the January 6th aftermath was that people weren't being charged and prosecuted according to what they actually did. So if you assaulted a police officer, yeah, I mean, listen, like
But they let Babbitt off, didn't they? Didn't they, Emma Jo? Am I
Bannon
right?
didn't assault a police officer. Bannon had contempt of Congress and he went to jail.
Not Bannon. I didn't say Bannon. I said Babbitt.
Babbitt, yeah. But just going back to immigration and this theme of the laws that are on the books, and I do think that's a good point, and I think that raises the root issue here, which is the Congress and the government did not pass immigration reform, and they really needed to. And there were pieces of immigration reform that had enough votes, Democrats and Republicans, in a bipartisan way that could have passed. And frankly, both political parties thought it was too profitable to keep immigration on the ballot as opposed to resolving it in a constructive way. And even using the example that I raised earlier, the Dreamers, the Dream Act back in probably 2013, 2014 would have passed the United States Senate and had enough votes to probably become law. And some of the leadership, including on the Democratic side, did not want to separate the DREAM Act from the rest of immigration reform. So I've been a strong believer that when you have progress that can be made, you should try and make it. And because of the inaction and the incentives for inaction, we have this issue that we have today, and our laws need to be changed.
I mean, maybe, but to say that this stuff isn't people taking it upon themselves to try to exercise a veto over what the law is and how it's being enforced according to what it is disingenuous. You could say that that's what they're doing, and I would respect that and agree with that, but that is what they're doing. To say like, no, like, but like how it should be in the resource. We have a law on the books. You agree, Stephen, that it should be changed, and so do I, by the way, for that matter, but it's on the books. Maybe it sucks. Maybe it's unfair, cruel, or whatever, but it is what it is, and ICE is there to enforce it. And I think that to call what's going on anything but obstruction of the law and an attempt not to protest but to veto the votes is dishonest. And Robbie said like, hey, like I thought that the COVID rules and the COVID laws were completely unfair and un-American and they offended me morally, and I hoped that people would violate them. It's like so honest, and you can respect that honesty. That's fine. But at least say that. Don't pretend that this is some sort of righteous crusade and totally legit. It's not legit. ICE is legit.
I mean, my reason for bringing that up too was though because most conservatives also felt that way. So the idea that maybe it's this way for you, but the idea that for most conservatives just, well, no, it's not that it's about immigration. It's just that the law, whatever it is, should be followed to the exact letter, and we should apply as much enforcement toward it as it takes to execute the laws to the maximum degree. As I'm saying, if people think about it, most people do not actually feel that way. Most
no, not necessarily.
Want discretion and want to say that's dumb, that shouldn't be a law. I don't really care if it's enforced, because that's living in the real world.
Robbie, during COVID, I consciously and blatantly and intentionally violated the law because I insisted on going to the park to play squash. I insisted on it. I wasn't near anybody. I kept getting nailed for it.
I didn't drive the speed limit on my way to work today.
Yeah, I kept paying the tickets because I was like, I am morally offended by the law. It may be the law, but it offends me so much that I will protest it in my small way, and I don't care. I'm violating it. But I'm not saying no, the COVID laws weren't what they were, or they were being enforced in a cruel way against me. It's like, I wasn't following the law, and I was doing that on purpose because I was offended by it. Yeah. And I didn't want it to apply to me. So I was just I was just ignoring it and paying my $60, like a monthly fee to a gym.
Yeah.
Okay. See how much air that takes out of this. Just
right, but that's how I feel about when, when immigration authority, when they rounded up the South Korean immigrants who are helping to build the factory. There's nobody else who knows how to make the factory work, and they round them up. And then even Trump agreed. Trump said, yeah, that was a mistake. I wish they hadn't done that. And like, I am morally outraged on their behalf that we enforce the law in some maximalist, stupid way that even Trump doesn't agree with. Like that doesn't affect me at all, but it didn't harm me to have them there building the factory. It was good for me and the community that they were going to build it. Like that kind of thing bothers me. It doesn't bother me if they're doing deportation of people who have any outstanding criminal issue of any other kind, because I see the argument then. But if it's just we've all like, if your paperwork is not in order, because in that case it was like they thought they were allowed to consult on the project but not like touch the physical components of the project. It sounds so stupid to me, but that's why I'm a libertarian. When the rules get too complicated, I go, this is stupid.
Just bureaucratic, right?
I don't like bureaucracy. I hate bureaucracy. I hate TSA. I hate going through airport security. If I was not a libertarian, every time I had to get on a plane flight, I would become a libertarian. I become an anarchist because I hate taking off my shoes for these people. I know it's the rule, but the rule is stupid and it protects no one and it accomplishes nothing. And I can't do it if it's stupid. That's just me.
Well, sometimes you have different rules at the state level and the federal level, like smoking weed, for example.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say just at the airport. I think
at the airport.
Unfortunately, you can't smoke weed at any airport. That would be a major improvement if you could. We'd all travel in a much more Zen-like state. I think we got to leave it there. Thank you so much, everybody who offered your thoughts, your comments on this week's show. I thought it was a great one. Great discussion. We'll be back with more group chat next week. See you then.